Hello and welcome to the start of Celtic's Champions League campaign here on 6-7 Hail Hail. We've found out the draw, but before we get to it, I'm John. We're joined by Dave, and I'm going to throw it over to Dave in a minute for his thoughts on the draw. But just a quick explanation of what we're doing here today and why I'm here and Hamish isn't. Hamish is at the stadium today, doing the fancy pants press conference stuff, speaking to a player, watching the draw with a group of people there. So he'll have all that for you tomorrow. But we thought, why deny the viewers an opportunity to chat about Celtic? So what's most important is you're here with us live, and we're ready to get stuck into a big day for Celtic for all sorts of reasons. Transfer news, the Champions League draw, all sorts of things kicking off. Dave, Real Madrid, RB Leipzig, Shakhtar Donetsk. How are you feeling?
John, I'm absolutely buzzing, mate. I was fully anticipating coming out, and I was having English teams, which I'd never liked playing English teams. I was fully expecting having to go to Italy, possibly to PSG, and I'm certainly not going to go overboard and say that it's an easy draw, but I think it's in the scope of what it could have been. I think it's a very manageable draw, and I'm not one of these people who wants glamour ties. I want us to try and get points ultimately. So yeah, I'm absolutely delighted.
You know what? What's good about this group in particular, I think it's got all sorts of different things with different people. Like the people who want a glamour game, have got the Real Madrid thing. The people who are wanting to be a bit more competitive, have got other teams to sink their teeth into. It's really a group that has it all for me, which is one of the best things about it. And when you're looking at some of the other groups out there that are looking like real horror shows, such as PSG and Juventus and Benfica, I think was one of the groups, just for example, Barcelona with Bayern Munich. I mean, those would have been nightmares for us. So the fact that we've managed to escape the total nightmare and given ourselves a really good chance of just giving it a good go, I would say. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to stomp all over this group or second place is a guarantee or third place is a guarantee, but it feels like an opportunity for us. Do you think that's a fair assessment?
You want a fighting chance. Ultimately, you want to give yourselves an opportunity to progress and have European football after Christmas. So, in that regard, I don't think you can ask for too much more. Like you said, there's some different stuff in there. Getting the holders is always exciting, and that's a feeling we've had a few times. Shakhtar, what kind of condition they'll be in, I suppose we'll see. That game will be at a neutral venue as well, which will be interesting. Then, of course, Leipzig, we know, and the Red Bull football brand is quite well established, so we know quite well how they play and how they'll come into it. But again, I'm not someone who kind of begrudges having teams that we've had previously. Certainly not when you think we've never had Real Madrid in this iteration of the competition. I think it's dead exciting, and it was what Callum McGregor wanted. It was what Scott McDonald wanted as well. I think he said when he was on here that was his bold prediction for the season, was that we were going to get Real Madrid, which Hamish mocked him for, and it's come up. It's happened.
What I'd say about the other teams in the group, I mean, Real Madrid almost takes care of itself. Obviously, the holders of the competition, a known quantity. Everyone knows, well, a lot of people know a fair bit about most of their players. I think it's worth pointing out that Leipzig and Donetsk they're both seasoned Champions League teams. Like, this isn't, a group of no-hopers by any means, not at all. Like, they are, teams that have finished third consistently in these competitions over the last couple of years. I mean, even if you look at Leipzig last year, notable that they finished third in a group that contained Man City, Paris Saint-Germain and Club Brugge, went into the Europa League, but as we know, came unstuck against Rangers, and I think that's what might give a lot of Celtic fans something to hang their hat on here, because I think a lot of people would have watched those games and seen how Rangers managed to get at them, and obviously as champions then hopefully we can do similar. So that kind of stuck at me. Donetsk again, consistently finishing third over the last few years. Didn't last year, notably. They had Real Madrid last year and struggled against them. Finished fourth in their group. So, these teams know a bit more about this Champions League than I would certainly say we do in the most recent past, and certainly with our players. A lot of these players are going to be new to this competition, but I think that's the good thing about it as well. I mean, you'll know as well as me, Ange Postecoglou is going to have these players running 100 miles an hour at this.
And that's how we're going to get points in this group. Ultimately, it's not going to come down to packing up the defence and sitting in a low block and trying to stifle teams out. Even when we go to Madrid, we're going to do this playing our way, playing the way that we play week in, week out. And that's not having a lack of pragmatism or being kind of big-headed about it. That's just how you're most likely to get results ultimately, because you don't want to play in the team's hands by adopting an unfamiliar system or formation the way that we have done, and certainly the thrashing in the new camp, we changed things up and we saw how that went. But no, we'll approach these games, I think, the way we should. And even the Madrid game, which I think people will look at the game of the Bernabeu as almost a kind of free hit. They're slightly odd holders of the Champions League because football's such a system game at the top level at this point, where most of the big teams, obviously they have amazing players, they have star players, but they don't have kind of a standout player the way that you would previously associate kind of eras with a star player. The system is king, and you could probably say that about us as well. Whereas Madrid very much kind of moments their way at the Champions League. If you look at the ties they have, and I'm certainly not saying that it was lucky in any way, but you play those games 1,000 times, do Madrid win it most of the time? Probably not. There was moments of magic, moments of mistakes that they took advantage of. So they're probably a team, it's fair to say, in transition as well, moving away from the side that won all those Champions Leagues. Obviously, Casemiro's going as well, and they've recruited well. Of course they have, because they've got basically bottomless funds. But I think you're probably playing Madrid at a decent time as well, if there is a good time to play Real Madrid.
Yeah. I mean, a few notes of housekeeping before we kind of move on to other topics. We don't know the specific dates of each match or when we'll be playing home and away yet. That's always decided by UEFA later due to all sorts of logistical reasons. We're also paired with Rangers in terms of not playing, in Glasgow in the same week as them, etc., etc. But we do know a rough sense of when the dates will be. So it's the 6th or 7th of September, the 13th or 14th of September, the 4th or 5th of October, the 11th or 12th of October, the 25th or the 26th of October, and then the last match day 6, is on the 1st or 2nd of November. It's all you'll probably know this by now, everyone, but it's all condensed because of the World Cup in Qatar. So it's going to be a really busy couple of months, a really exciting couple of months. Not just playing in the Champions League, but also coupling that with the league action. There's a derby right before match day 1. There's going to be all sorts of intense midweek to weekend matches. And I think this is why, Dave, that, the manager's been urging that he's trying to bring almost the basement level of the squad up, and ensuring that we've got a deep squad that can, counter all sorts of challenges regardless of the competition.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I think that's what this transfer window has been about. It's been about, obviously, it's easy to say that we should be raising our ceiling, but it's a difficult thing to do, especially when two of your better players that we've now subsequently signed were players that we had last year. Just as a kind of side note, there is I think it's match day 5. We've got Hearts away and then Livy away the Saturdays, with that in the middle. So depending on what game that is, I mean, regardless of what game that is, that's going to be a hell of a week. One of the hardest weeks I think you could think of in recent years. But no, of course, it was one of the kind of remarkable things about last season is that we got there and we got over the line despite having, we basically went to the wire with kind of the same 15, 16 players each week, and that's a ridiculous thing to do in this day and age when you think how much football we play. And obviously we'll come on to talk about Sierrak Sabanovic, but that for me is one that I think will try and push that ceiling up. He's one that I think immediately competes for the first team.
And it just feels like an improvement over perhaps Johnston and Forrest. Forrest to extent, he's kind of feels like he's in the later stages of a Celtic career. Johnston has never really got his Celtic career up and running in a way that most people would like. So I think just having different options on both sides of things is a good thing there with regards to him specifically. Before we move on to him and talk about him in a bit more detail, I'm going to pull in some comments here from the audience. As always, folks, your feedback is welcome. So if there's any audio issues or any problems, please let me know. Because as you know, I'm not quite as slick as Hamish with all that patter. But first comment from Flinney, saying he's buzzing to see how our squad can compare to some of these big teams. Bring it on, and Ange we trust. Nathan O'Neill with a solid point here that is also correct. Shakhtar will play their home games in Warsaw this year due to the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, so that's another factor. More difficult for them. Obviously, Ukrainian football's had all sorts of issues over the last 8 or so months. Real problems there in terms of getting regular matches and getting fitness in their seasons. So that could be a factor, unfortunately for them over the next couple of months too. A lot of people talking about some other group draws. Exactly. Someone asking, where is Hamish? Hamish is at Celtic Park He'll be back tomorrow with a special video interview, and I think it's Kyogo and Moritz Jens who were on press duties there, so Hamish will have a bit of patter from them. Just seeing if there's any more comments coming in from the chat.
Yeah, the neutral venue thing is an interesting one. I know Scotland are playing Ukraine in Krakow at the end of the month, in this month, in the international break. And you never really know how teams deal with that. The neutral venue, it's an odd one for both sides, I think.
And one here from Joe Hamilton. Fantastic to see Real Madrid coming to paradise. Great for our club and great for the Real Stars. Even they have never heard what our fans are capable of. Of course, Celtic played against Real Madrid long before either of our times, Dave, back in the early 80s, over 40 years ago now. And so, special one for the older crowd, special one for us because we've never seen them here. I just think I've been wanting us to play Madrid for years, really. You know, I'm not a Madrid fan or anything. I'm not one of those. But I think there'll be a bit of needle in that one. I don't think I think it'll be a hostile atmosphere for them, is what I'm saying. I don't think it'll be, Celtic fans over the years have felt like they've had an affinity to Barcelona in many ways. I don't think the same can be said for Real Madrid, and I think they're going to come here, and I think Celtic fans are going to make it a tasty atmosphere as much as a big one.
It's kind of remarkable that we've never drawn Madrid, when you think that it almost became just a kind of pattern that we would get one of Barcelona, Benfica, AC Milan, like every year or every other year. And when you think of when you add Liverpool to that, who have obviously had in the UEFA Cup, that's kind of the real pedigree sides in this competition that we've had, routinely over the years, and just never ever got Madrid. So I'm getting excited again talking about it. It's funny that I was worried about this all day. I hate the day of the draw. I hate watch the draw. Normally I'll just go out a drive and just see the draw when it comes back in. But no, it's so exciting. It's such an exciting time.
It was an odd one. I'm never usually that nervous with these draws, but for some reason, I think it was maybe obviously the first Champions League for 5 years or something. I just felt I felt something in my stomach today, like maybe it was just my lunch, but no, I felt like something. I'm really nervous about who we're going to get, especially when some of those, the early pot 1 and 2 teams were coming out, and there were some horror shows there, and I was thinking this is going to be, terrible for us. But as soon as our name came out and went into that group, I was like, bring this on. This is exactly what we want to see. I was just looking at some of Leipzig's results there. Not going too great for them in Bundesliga this year. They're 11th. Yeah, they got beat by Union Berlin at the weekend. They drew with Cologne and the weekend before. Drew with Stuttgart the weekend before and got beat by Bayern in the German Super Cup. So not going great for them, which is obviously good for us too.
It's funny, it's such a kind of double-edged sword where you'd be nervous if a club was coming into these games absolutely flying, but it feels like we often play teams in crisis who then come and turn us over. So I'm taking absolutely nothing from that. They've obviously they've brought Werner back, which is a big one from them, because it never obviously played in some huge games and had some good performances there, but always felt like a bit of an odd one out at Chelsea, and he's back where he's made his name, he's comfortable. I think they've recruited another couple from inside the league, maybe not as heavy as you kind of associate the Red Bull clubs with, but no, it's another one that'll you think that game will be as frenetic as the one in 2017 was, which is still one of my favourite games from that era. That was the when we conceded and then immediately scored 10-12 seconds later. That was an incredible night, and hopefully more of the same.
It'll also be interesting because it feels like that's a similar type of draw than the Leverkusen one we got last year. It'll be interesting to see how much we've improved and if we've learned anything from those games and whether it can be put into practice. Obviously, it's not a direct, analogue like for like, but just another thing to kind of think back on when we're thinking about this Ange team, particularly in Europe. I think we'll go at Leipzig in a similar way that we would against Leverkusen last year. So that's an interesting one. Flinny asking, when is the cut-off date for the registering players? That's after the transfer window. So our transfer window closes on the 1st of September, and then I think the registration's after that. So there's no issues there. We've got a bit of time to bring players in if we want to, which brings us around to the last week of the transfer window, Dave, and made a signing today. First signing for a while. We obviously did a lot of our business early in the window. Sead Haksabanovic That's how I'm pronouncing it anyway. Although I'm sure
You
there'll be
got
a
it.
lot. Yeah, there'll be a lot of different ones over the next few weeks. Had to practice that one a few times today. But in all seriousness, we spoke about it here. He comes in and offers versatility. How are you feeling about the squad in general heading into this last week? And do you feel like the club need to do a little bit more here, or sign one or maybe two more players in some positions?
I'd still like another midfielder. I think I'd still like another slightly more physical player to play in the six. Otherwise, I think a lot of our business has been good business. It's been sensible business. I think Haksabanovic, particularly despite looking like one that we weren't going to get a month ago, because he was mentioned back in late July, early August, and it looked like the clubs were kind of at loggerheads about the fee. We've got him for what looks to be not a nominal fee, but certainly a fraction of what he's worth. And we've spoken about that £20 million kind of soft cap that the Athletic reported, and that's us pretty much at that now. I would expect a few fringe players to go. I would certainly imagine the likes of Ayeti probably to find a new club, probably on loan. Probably hard to shift a player on his wages at this point. Obviously, Gillian's gone now as well, which is another big one. And other than that, maybe expect a few loans. It would be nice to get another midfielder in, but I think I'd be relatively content with what we've done.
Yeah, I feel content at the moment. I think it's been a good window. I think maybe a player, a midfielder that really feels like has taken us not to another level, but just, again, as you say, kind of adds to the pool ahead of some of the options that are behind McGregor, might make everyone feel a bit better. And that would turn it into I dare say it, a great window. And just in terms of retained all of our players, it looks like we're going to retain all of our star players. We've moved on a lot of players who weren't getting opportunities. I know there's still one or two, but you're thinking, we've got rid of Barkas, we got rid of Bolingoli, we got rid of Julien. Ayeti's kind of left from that group who weren't really in the manager's plans. As you say, a couple of loans out for a couple of younger players. And I think the players that we've brought in, by and large, look like pretty good additions. Haksabanovic, signed on a 5-year deal, big commitment. He's got a chance to kind of make this his home now. He seems like a player who's been, flitting around a lot of clubs around Europe, Sweden, West Ham, Russia. It's never quite come together for him. I think he needs somewhere to focus and build on. But I think, as we've seen under Postecoglou so far, that's been almost a hallmark of the transfers he's brought in. You look at Carter Vickers, who was kind of flitting about on loan, Jota, he's brought these players to a club who are looking for a home and given them an opportunity to play football. And I think that's what might have attracted Ange to this deal as much as anything, as well as it looking like, as you alluded to there, a pretty cheap deal, all things considered. I think he moved for about £6 million last year. As you say, he was offered to us earlier in the summer. I think Rubin Kazan were looking for a bit more for him than they got. And so I'm looking at this and looking like it's a little bit of a transfer coup for us. If he can come in and play to the level that he has in some of his other clubs, then we look like I've got a player on the cheap who can shine and progress here over the next few years.
Oh, it looked, on the face of it, it's an absolute bargain. Like you said, he has shown that he can consistently play in multiple positions. He's played at a consistently good level. He's got 18 caps for his country. 23 years is a great age to come in straight into the first team. He's also, just from listening to people who have watched him, he's a very modern pressing forward option who should come in and slot into the system absolutely no bother. And to get him at that price, I think that's just an absolute no-brainer if we were offered him at that price. And it almost surprises me that we've managed to get him. He's one that maybe hasn't fulfilled the kind of expectations that he had when he first broke in, because I think he's still the second youngest ever player to play in Sweden's top flight. I think he made his top flight debut at 15. So, and when he went to West Ham, there were all kinds of clubs sniffing around. I think Chelsea were mentioned, Real Madrid were mentioned. So clearly not hit those heights yet, but obviously there's something there, and there's something to work with. And yeah, I'm dead excited by him.
A few more comments here. I'll bring in Paul Burns because he's roasting me. The country of West Ham. Well done, Paul. You got me there. Good one there. And one from Nick Porter Rennick here on Facebook saying, an Aussie manager managing in Europe, a dream come true for Australian football supporters. I think that's going to be a big thing. specifically for our audience, because we actually, we've got a lot of Australian viewers who are constantly, coming to check out the channel, get involved in the comments section. It's a big thing for Australia, a big thing for Postecoglou at this stage of his career. It feels almost to me, Dave, that this is what his entire career has been building towards, is a match in charge of Celtic at Celtic Park against the champions of Europe in Real Madrid. I don't think he'll say that in a press conference, but it does feel like, it's all been building up to this moment.
And it's kind of I think he said it multiple times in his book, that it's kind of been a glass ceiling for Australian football, that those coaches don't really get jobs at big clubs over in Europe. There's a stigma that you kind of see applied to a lot of leagues, in their league to a certain extent, by the kind of top 5 leagues, that that football's not of a good quality, or that there aren't quality players there, and that does shatter ceilings. I think people will look at it will certainly change attitudes about Australian football, and obviously Japanese football as well. So yeah, they're absolutely entitled to be excited about it. It's brilliant. Again, Real Madrid at Celtic Park. It's one of those fixtures that you hope we can go out and make that an occasion to remember.
I certainly agree. Now, we'll probably leave it here, folks. We've been about 20 minutes or so there. We just wanted to give you as a place to chat about the game, for us to get our views across in the immediate aftermath of the draw. A little bit hectic, a little bit slapdash here, but we'll have more reasoned analysis and opinion and chat over the next few days on the channel, not just about this, but about everything to do with Celtic. As I say, Hamish has been at Celtic Park today, speaking to Kyogo and Moritz Jens, so that'll be with you tomorrow. There'll be audio or whatever we get from the club that tomorrow, and he'll have lots of chat about that. I'm sure he'll also have a little bit more of a deep dive into all of our opponents in the Champions League. Again, ahead of a big weekend going away to Tannadice. This is the start of this schedule now, Dave. Just finally, start of this schedule, going to Tannadice, then immediately going to Dingwall. Then, it all kicks off from there.
And I think a lot of us have missed those midweek games, and probably not quite appreciated the fact that we don't really get a month without midweek football. And we've had it, and we're not going to get... we're probably not going to have many free midweeks, certainly until the World Cup, and probably not for the rest of the season until kind of March, April, when the games start to slow down. But no, it's exciting, and off the back of this, I think it's just a great time to follow Celtic.
I'm excited. Dave's excited. I can see everyone in the chat's excited. I'm sure everyone in the comment section below will be excited. So have a chat about this. Share your opinions. Get hyped for a big season. It might not all go our way all of the time, but I think that's part of it. I'm really looking forward to seeing what's ahead with Celtic in Europe and domestically over the next couple of months. So for now, everyone, goodbye, and thanks for joining us live.